I'm going to go ahead and call to order this meeting of the Greenfield Conservation Commission at 6:36 p.m. on January 11th, 2022. Commission members present are me, Travis Drury, Kristen, Fletcher, and Erica. If Rachel joins at some point, I will mention when that happens. Just a note that this meeting is being held virtually, and if any technical interruption occurs and the meeting ends, it will not be resumed, and all items will automatically be continued at the next scheduled meeting date, which would be 2 weeks from today. Also, just a note that this meeting is being recorded, and if anyone else is recording the meeting, you are required to let me know at this time. Okay, I do not hear anyone else recording. If anyone does start recording, please let me know when you begin recording. Okay, so the first thing on the agenda is approval of minutes from December 14th, 2021.
Make a motion to accept the minutes from December 14th, 2021.
I'll second that. I'll just say there was a little bit of a little lack of clarity in the first paragraph as to which, like, all the conversation was there, but it just didn't quite reference which item it was speaking about. But it all seemed accurate. So.
Okay, so you're not requesting any changes necessarily.
No, just pointing that out.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion that has been seconded? Okay, hearing no other discussion, we will vote on the motion to approve the minutes from December 14th, 2021. All opposed? All abstaining? Okay, the motion passes unanimously with the 4 members currently present. Okay, next on the agenda is public meeting, request for determination of applicability, installation of a backup generator at 195 Millbrook Road, map R11, lot 84. And is there someone here to discuss that project?
Hi, my name is Kate Wilkins. I'm with Ty and Bond, and also with me is Zach Cherniak from Ty and Bond. Do you want us to just roll in, or?
Yeah, you can just go ahead and if you have the plans you want to share, you can do that, or if you would like me to try to share them, I could do that too.
I can share my screen. Happy to do so. All right, so this is a kind of an overview, easy to see figure kind of showing the proposed work area and what we've got going on. So this is for the Welfield generator project at 195 Millbrook Road. The general gist of the project is to add a backup generator for the existing pump station number 1 down here, and the existing corrosion control facility. Right now there is no backup generator system here, so if power goes out, this system goes out. So the town would like to add in this backup generator system so they can continue to provide potable water during emergency situation and outages. So the site is located within the well field. It's an existing well field, existing pump station and corrosion control facility. This area is kind of a graveled and partially paved section of the well field. There's existing propane tank. That's this little guy right there on the left-hand side of the pump station. So the work is going to entail installing a new 100 kilowatt generator at the existing pump station. That's going to go on a 9 foot by 5 foot concrete pad. And then there'll be bollards installed around that. 1 second, sorry. So sorry about that. Family's home. So installing the pump station or the generator adjacent to the existing pump station on a concrete pad, bollards will be installed around that for safety measures, making sure that there is no ability for anything to hit it. And then this existing 500 gallon propane tank and concrete pad is going to be removed. That area will be loamed and seeded. Material will be taken off site, and 2 new 1,000 gallon propane tanks will be installed on a 12 foot by 16 foot concrete pad, further from the resource area, further up adjacent to the pump station. The added propane tank and the capacity, as well as the having 2 instead of 1, will just kind of help the overall vaporization rate and keep the generator moving and going for longer. So there's already a connection between the corrosion control facility and the pump station, so no conduits are going to be needed to connect the generator with the 2 facilities. There is conduit that's going to be to be installed between the new propane tank and generator and pump house. So just to kind of connect the new infrastructure to the existing infrastructure there. The overall resources within the site, we have this large bordering vegetated wetland that borders the river. That's this 1A series here. So the project site is located within the 200-foot riverfront area, as well as the 100-foot buffer zone. And due to the proximity of the existing pump station is also within the 25-foot local no disturb. The site is already existing maintained lawn. It's going to continue to be that. And we're hoping we were able to move this existing propane tank a little further. So that was an overall net positive here. That's kind of the gist of the project. Zach, do you have anything to add to the overall project and need and scope of work?
Yeah, sure. My name is Zach Chorniak. I'm the senior project manager at Time Bond, responsible for this design. I'll add in that this is a grant-funded project through the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program that the town was awarded. Oh, geez, it's probably going on 3 years. Can folks still hear me? Okay, I got the boundary well side.
Yeah, you cut out for a second.
Okay, sorry about that. You know, propane's the fuel source for the generator. That's required to, you know, be in the Welfield protection zone. No diesel fuel, you know, to seek into groundwater. The construction project is super non-invasive. The only excavation is to, you know, level the ground to install those concrete pads, and then have the trenching in between the pad and the generator and the building to put in, you know, propane lines and power lines in that vicinity. So super minimal impacts. You know, that's the impetus for, you know, RDA versus NOI here. And yeah, it's gonna restore, you know, the ability for the town to run the erosion control facility, all 3 pump stations, and provide the town with adequate water through power outages for our extended duration of period. So that's the intent of the project. If there's any technical questions, I'm here to answer those as well.
One thing I forgot to add is erosion and sediment controls will also be installed prior to any ground disturbance.
I just have one question. When you were talking about moving, you know, taking out the current tank and putting in the new ones, are the new ones going to be outside of the 25-foot no disturb zone?
Yeah,
Exactly.
you got a site plan you can show up?
Sorry.
Back right there. So you can see the way the north arrow is. You can see where the existing propane tank is on the back there. I don't know if
So
I
the
can press
existing,
control.
sorry. You can see the existing propane tank right over here on the right-hand side.
Correct. So in front of the building is where the two new propane tanks will be. It's almost kind of in the parking lot area. It's farther away from the area and beyond the 25-foot buffer.
So if we were to go back to the aerial just to look, it would be kind of over in this area here.
Correct.
So just on the edge of kind of that 25-foot or further out. Zach.
Yeah, it might actually be just a tiny bit over that, but it's to the north a little farther than your cursor.
Okay.
Yep, under that pine tree.
Do the commissioners have any questions?
So for this RDA, we're really, I mean, at this stage, not looking at the plans necessarily, we're more focused on resource area boundaries, correct? And whether the work would be within jurisdictional resource areas under the bylaw and the Wetlands Protection Act, correct?
Yeah, I think we're determining whether it's within a jurisdictional area, which it would be because it's within the buffer zone, no disturb zone, riverfront area, and then also determining whether it would have an impact. So we could issue a negative determination if we think it is within the resource area, but it's not going to impact anything or have a positive impact. Or we could issue a positive determination if we think that it would impact an area and they would need to submit an NOI. And just a note that at 6:49 p.m., Rachel Lindsay joined the meeting.
Zach, or Kate, could you just again repeat the? I understand the pads and the impact there, but as far as any trenching goes, can you just repeat? Is it just from the? Is it sort of a trench north from the
Sure.
current pump station to the?
Okay, can you go back to the site plan, please? So the two propane tanks to the left of the existing building there, there's a propane line that goes to the pump station itself, and then there's a line that goes over to the generator, and then there's a electrical line that goes from the generator to the pump station. So it's three separate trenches. There's a detail on this drawing as well to the down a little bit there that shows the electrical duct bank. We're talking 3.5 feet deep, pretty narrow, 2 feet wide or so for the power, and it'll be a similar except a little bit shallower trench for the gas service, which is I think it's a 1-inch polyethylene pipe.
Okay, thank you. And the erosion controls you're talking about would be installed for that work as well as the concrete pads.
Correct. We're going to have erosion controls that surround the entire building. They're not shown on this site plan, but it's covered in the spec for the project.
Okay.
Straw wattles.
Okay.
Are you in bordering land subject to flooding?
I think
No.
we're just outside that. Yeah. And obviously, the reason we're going through the RDA process as opposed to an NOI is that, the disturbance to the ground is super minimal here. There's very little chance of erosion. The site is very flat, easy to control any kind of, stormwater runoff or anything like that.
And is there any increase in impervious surface area within the 25-foot or the riverfront?
Probably not, since we're removing the existing propane tank and only a portion of the new propane tank is within the 25-foot. It's likely a wash.
As far as removing the old propane, is that, I assume that's pretty standardized process, but is there, and what's that? That's a liquid or a gas? I mean, is there any concern about potential spillage or leak? or
Nope.
anything?
Can you hear me still? My mic died.
Yep.
Great. As far as removing the propane tank goes, the contractor will be responsible for picking up that tank and putting it on a truck and hauling it away. They'll empty the tank elsewhere off site. The new propane tanks come in, they're empty, and then you get a propane delivery similar to you would at your house for any kind of propane. It is liquid compressed propane.
Okay.
This is not degraded riverfront currently, correct?
It's currently maintained lawn,
Okay, but it's not paved.
correct?
Okay, so it's, okay, gotcha. Thank you.
There's a portion of the existing driveway and parking area between the pump station and the corrosion control facility that's partially gravelled, partially paved.
I just wanted to mention for Rachel's benefit that just before she joined, Kate presented just like the overview of the map, and then I just had a question about whether like where the new tanks were going to be in comparison to the old tank that they're removing. And that's about all you missed on this so far. So you didn't really miss much. And yeah, so the tank is currently on the left side of the building, and then it's going to be moved to the right side of the building, mostly probably out of the 25-foot no disturb zone, it sounds like.
Yeah, kind of sited right at this pine tree here.
So you're all caught up now. And you're muted. Rachel, you're muted.
I am. Hi. Sorry for being late. Had a
That's okay.
unexpected late site visit in Eastern Mass. Were there trees that are being removed then for resiting the propane tank out of the no disturb?
Not required by this project, no.
I'm curious about like where the current tank is after it's removed. Is that is it required that that be maintained as lawn, or could that, have more of a no mow zone there, since it's in like the 25-foot no disturb zone?
So that whole area is maintained currently. The intent of this project would be to, remove the pad that the tank is sitting on completely, fill in the void space and then loam and seed it. Presumably to be maintained in the future as well.
Okay. did you have I think I saw in our documents some pictures of the site in addition to these plans. I'm not sure if it's in this document.
Mhm.
Yeah, if we could just go through those real quick.
Yep. This is this first picture here is the stream channel that goes underneath the road. This is the bridge currently that comes off of Long Plain down Millbrook. The project site, I believe, is off to the right here. This is a view of the existing pump house facility or the erosion control facility off to the side here. I mean, there's a large kind of wet meadow area that's all along the backside that we delineated. A view of wetland 1F located south of the pump station, which is here.
That's not the pump station we're connecting to. That's the one that's there's 3 different pump stations within the well field. That's pump station number 1 that's farther back set that we're not going toward. And that bottom photo is the photo behind the pump. Actually, the labeling is incorrect there. That first photo that on this page is not number 1. That's pump station number 2. That's the one that's set way far back. Pump station number 1 is the one we're working with, and that propane tank, that photo right there is the one that's being removed right behind and kind of the maintained lawn area behind that.
Did you already clarify what side of the pump station there so I assume you have to get vehicles over to remove the propane? Is that happening south of the building, or is there access north of the building around so that you're not coming through the 25-foot no disturb zone in that wet meadow?
Let me see if I can grab a separate picture here.
Let me know if you need me to stop sharing, Zach.
Yeah, give me 1 second. I can grab this photo should do it. See if I can share. Can you stop sharing?
Mhm.
Can folks see this picture with the boom truck?
Mm-hmm.
So this is looking from, I guess, south to north at the pump station. You know, maybe 20 feet in front of this boom truck toward where I'm taking this photo is where the propane tank is going to go. The new propane tanks. Behind that truck out back is where the existing propane tank is. So, you know, the paved access that comes up to this building is where the trucks drive to deliver propane. They back up along the right side of this building on the lawn area. Not within any wetlands, but at some point, you know, within the 25-foot buffer.
So if you go back to the map, that's the east side of the building that we're looking at.
How do I stop sharing?
You should just be able to go up to the top and say stop sharing.
I lost the entire window. Stop sharing.
So we were
Yes.
looking at. We were looking at the vehicle parked over here, correct, Zach?
Correct.
Got it. So the access is from the east where you're connecting, and then you would go north of the building and around to get to the propane tank. That's how they've been filling it, and that's how you would remove it.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So maybe me and the commissioners can just talk this out. So the applicant's obviously asking for a negative determination, but I'm still a little confused how we can issue a negative determination because of the riverfront. Because it's not degraded, don't they still need to show how they're going to meet the performance standards under the Wetlands Protection Act?
I think if we just determine that it doesn't have a net negative impact on the site, despite it being there. But yeah,
I mean, if you were to issue a negative for saying that the work is located within resource areas, but doesn't the work, in your opinion, does not degrade said resource area.
10.58 goes on for 10 pages, and I'm not as familiar with it off the top of my head. I always have to dig deep into this whenever I address riverfront issues, and I don't know.
Are there any exemptions for utilities within the riverfront if it's not degrading?
Yeah, let me read activities. This is Wetlands Protection Act. Activities within the area subject to protection. Minor activities within the riverfront area meeting the requirements of 310 CMR. And 2, activities conducted to maintain, repair, replace, but not substantially change or enlarge an existing and lawfully located structure or facility used in the service of the public and used to provide electric, gas, water, sewer, telephone, telegraph, and other communication services, provided that the work utilizes best practical measures to avoid or minimize impacts to resource areas.
Yeah, just to further, can people see my screen of Google Maps here?
Yeah.
I mean, the areas we're working in are mowed lawn. It's delineated within some resource areas, but not. I mean, there's no impacts to any resource areas at all.
Zach, riverfront area is a resource area, so.
Well,
Yeah.
correct, but I
Just
mean, it's not. Yeah, you're right.
And we don't exactly know the square footage of impervious surface area coming and going.
Well,
I mean, the impervious area we're dealing with here is the surface area on a propane tank. So it's couple square feet of difference.
the work within the jurisdictional areas is 550 square feet total.
Okay.
but that's the new impervious area. If we just go by the pads, is that-
Right. I didn't necessarily calculate out the
Sure.
removal of the 500-gallon tank versus the
Right.
addition of the other two.
Correct.
think to just to go back to what you were saying, I think it is somewhat of a qualitative like decision based on sort of what's there, the work that's taking place, and what will result. Again, whether it creates a negative impact. But if there's something people see in the regs that says to the contrary, definitely say so.
Does the applicant have a citation, a regulatory citation on how you meet the exemptions, or on how you, on how this activity can avoid requiring performance standards that would help us out as the commissioners?
We did not, so just looking through what the exemptions say, we don't necessarily meet the full exemption of a utility under 310 CMR 10.022. As we're not necessarily maintaining an existing facility, if you want to be very specific, conducted to maintain, repair, or replace, but not substantially change or enlarge. We don't feel like this is a substantial change or enlargement, but that's up to the commission's discretion if they feel that way also. And then if you're looking at activities within the buffer zone, which also include activities within riverfront area to a certain extent, there's multiple minor activities within the buffer zone that fall within generally what we are doing, but none of them specifically for water treatment. Installation of underground utilities, repair of sewer lines, installation of new equipment. So we don't necessarily fall into that criteria to give it a nice clean or a minor exempt activity within the buffer zone and riverfront area.
Do you know where that is, Katie? So I can just peek at that really quick. Do you have that off the top of your head? I've got the Wetlands Protection Act 10.58 open, but it's seriously so long. If you have that.
Right. So the exemptions are under 10.02.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And then once you get to 10.58, that's the riverfront area in particular.
Yeah, so minor activities are 10.021. Gotcha. Thank you.
So yeah, normally we would go 10.022, activities conducted to maintain or repair but not change, used in the service of the public and used to provide electric, gas, water, sewer, telephone, telegraph, and other. It's generally what we would use for a project similar, but it doesn't necessarily fall completely into that because we are adding some, at least one new tank and some equipment adjacent to, but it is all to kind of continue the use of the existing facilities and provide potable water to everybody during outages. For RDAs, we don't generally run through the full performance standards for the resource area, but if necessary, we can do that of how we meet or do not meet performance standards for riverfront area, if that's a concern for the commission.
Can you indicate on the Zach, on the ortho that you have like pulled up right now, like where exactly that the pad with the new propane tanks is going to be located?
Sure. Kind of drawing a rectangle right around it here.
Okay. So is that actually, it looks like it actually overlaps with paved, or is like adjacent to a paved surface?
Yeah, it's probably right up to the edge of it. You know, there's the site out here is not based on survey. You know, we used an ortho photo, and there's no utilities other than what the town owns out there, so it's pretty straightforward for design purposes. But you know, the pavement's pretty well degraded, so if the pad goes into the pavement a little bit, the town was okay with that. but it should be right in this area.
And that's the area that currently you were saying, because we were looking at the photo with the truck that was parked like past that. So that's the area that has been driven over, like has been the refill area. I'm just wondering with the definition of degraded, like it seems like a highly compacted lawn that has been driven over by trucks. Like,
Oh, it's fill from when they put in the pump station back in the 40s or wherever it was. I mean, it's hard compacted. I mean, not the best looking grass, but grass.
yeah, does that not meet the qualifications for a previously degraded area?
I was under
Yeah.
the impression degraded meant paved.
It seems to be one of those, depending on who you talk to. We've gotten guidance from Mark Stinson in the past with even utility transmission line right-of-ways that is a previously degraded area. Not always that are gravel road or gravel work pads or anything major, but in the past he's considered that us moving forward with a degraded riverfront area.
I think I mean, fill, I don't know, I guess if it was fill and then lawn on top, that's kind of a gray area. We've definitely, there's definitely precedent for using like graveled areas that have been unmaintained and kind of wild vegetated as degraded.
Yeah, and I'll add, you know, the sentence right out of our cover page is, you know, we respectfully request the Greenfield Conservation Commission issue negative category 2 and 3 determinations, finding that, quote, the work described in the request is within an area subject to protection under the Act, but will not remove, fill, dredge, or alter that area. Therefore, said work does not require the filing of a notice of intent. You know, the work described in the areas is within the buffer zone as defined within the regulations, but will not alter an area subject to protection under the Act.
Was anybody else in the commission able to go out and look at the site?
No, I was not.
So I've been out there, I think 3 times. There have been other submissions for work, the solar field that never happened.
Right, and that was I think we permitted that too.
Mhm.
Fine bonding.
I don't know. We were working with a company from California. They like flew consultants for a meeting.
That was the
Yeah, I
solar.
remember that.
Yeah. I guess I can say that if there's the regulations aren't crystal clear and there's some interpretation of it, I think from my experience or memory, having been out on the site, it definitely felt degraded and very, utilitarian. I think the improvement for moving those tanks and the pad and the access and the removing the necessity of driving around the building and then actually into the 25-foot no disturb zone, I think can be argued as an improvement to the resource areas there. So I personally, I wouldn't have a problem issuing a negative determination in this case.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. That I mean that there's been so much work done down there already that it seems like it's already been worked over and degraded. So.
I agree as well. I wouldn't. I don't think any of us would object though to if it's possible to maybe like let the vegetation, the higher standing vegetation, up a little further because you're removing that tank there, and if you don't have to drive back there anymore, then maybe let it push up.
And I think the town would happily invite that, other than being able to maintain around the building, just make sure vegetation is not growing on the building, obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm inclined to agree as well. I hate to create more paperwork, and I think that things are getting a little bottlenecked over at the DEP these days too. So
I think because of the proximity, issuing a negative determination 3 with, a standard site visit to inspect the erosion controls, especially since they aren't illustrated on the plan where they are. I think that would probably suffice. And if there's other conditions that any commissioners feel like are really important that they would want to see in place, that gives the opportunity for us to include them as well.
I think our boilerplates cover most of those things that we usually, no filling of, any of the trucks or anything down there or that kind of stuff. No fuel filling. What the only thing that you said you were going to remove the one pad, the old pad, and you're going to fill what? Do you have to fill a lot?
No, so the pad that's there, obviously, it's been there since the 40s. I have no idea how thick it is, but let's assume it's a foot thick. So you're taking that foot of concrete out of the ground, you have to put a foot of gravel back in and loam and seed so that it's, even with grade that exists around it. So we're not filling,
right.
We're not changing grade back there at all.
Okay. No, I just want, I'm assuming you're going to get clean fill and all that.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
Won't have any. Okay.
Yeah. In fact, they might even use the material that is excess from the trenching that was out there, adjacent to the site.
Okay, just want to make sure we don't get any.
To be native soil.
Okay. Just want to make sure we don't get any invasives starting.
And Rachel, just to add to what you were saying, I think we would also have to do a negative determination type 2 because that would be that it's within an area subject to protection, whereas 3 is only for buffer zone. So I think it would be a 2. That was what the applicant had requested, a negative category 2 and 3, because 2 would cover in the riverfront area because it's within an area subject to protection, and 3 says negative determination that the work is within the buffer zone. And so it's both in a buffer zone and in
a riverfront
area. Yeah.
So we can make a motion. We can issue 2 determinations for a single application.
I think so. Kate's shaking her head up there.
It's a joint negative determination under both 2 and 3 is what we request.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me because it is within the buffer zone, but it's also within other areas subject to protection.
Yeah, a lot of times commissions do that for their local bylaws as well, kind of covering both.
Which we have to do as well, right? Because the work is within the 25-foot no disturb zone. So
Yeah. So would anyone like to make a motion?
I was just gonna say, thank you for clarifying, Travis. I'll motion to issue a negative determination 2 and 3 under the Wetlands Protection Act for I don't have the number at hand for this application.
195 Millbrook Road.
195 Millbrook Road. Thanks.
I'll second that.
A second.
All right, motion made by Rachel, seconded by Fletcher. Is there any further discussion?
I think in addition to the boilerplate conditions, I like the possibility of using the native soil. So maybe we could just put like, if possible, using the soil from trench excavation or the other pad excavation on site. I think that simplifies some of the risks involved with bringing outside loam.
And I can point out too that I should have clarified earlier as well that I did say it's a grant-funded project. Part of the match for the grant is in-kind services by the town. So the town is actually going to be the ones doing the lion's share of the concrete work and the excavation. So, they're a local entity, obviously vested in doing the right thing there. The contract will go to an electrical person who's just going to install the generator in the propane tank.
Yeah, maybe the language should be something like that they could prioritize the use of the soil from the site. We could backfill the site. That in case they need more,
Yes, and I think it is in the boilerplate that anything brought in needs to be clean. Which with the town, I think we do need to take a little bit of extra precaution on because, yeah.
Well, I can say Community Bond will be on site too, observing construction, so we'll be out there monitoring things as well.
Great.
So Fletcher also mentioned letting the vegetation grow closer to the building where the old propane tank was removed. I'm not sure how to word that as a condition, if we want to make it a condition or not, and just.
And Zach and Kate, are you confident that as the town's going to be maintaining it, that would be amenable to them and sustainable? Because I think it's a good thing and an easy thing to do, but if they just stop mowing, proportional to the pad that's taken out, whether it be the same location or dimensions, but yeah.
There is a utility pole back there too that, the power lines span farther to the north to the building behind it. So, that right away I think is maintained to some degree, and that's probably most of the area that comes through toward the back of the building. But to the west side of the building where, most of the 25-foot buffer is, I think they could bring that up, a lot closer to the building. And honestly, when you go out there and look at it, it's pretty close as it is. I think it's a couple of lawnmower passes in between. It's kind of hard to see on Google Maps, but I think the less they have to mow, I don't think they're going to complain about that.
Yeah, I think that's a good spot for it too. So I think that'd be a worthwhile last condition there.
Maybe it could be worded something like minimize mowing behind or south and west of the pumping station to what is necessary for for maintenance.
Like that.
Yeah.
And maybe just add like resulting in the same or less mowed area in that area, something.
And I just to point it out, I feel like we could mention in that it's within the 25-foot no disturb zone, and that's the reason, minimize the mowing in the 25-foot no disturb zone to the south.
Yeah, it's actually south and west of the house. I think that the simpler way of describing that location.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, any other discussion or conditions the commissioners would like? Okay, hearing none, we have a motion that was seconded, so I'll put it to a vote. Any commissioners opposed to a negative determination with these conditions? Anyone abstaining? Okay, then that motion passes unanimously. Negative determination 2 and 3 with conditions for the Wetlands Protection Act.
With respect to the Greenfield ordinance, do we make a negative motion to issue a negative determination? What, just 2 because it's protected in Greenfield? Or would it be a 3 because it's technically in the buffer zone?
I think 2 would cover the buffer zone too, because it says an area subject to protection, and the buffer zone is subject to protection, right? So.
Okay. That would also, I mean, we've already issued the orders under the conditions rather under the the other one. We don't need to repeat.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay, so I'll issue a motion to issue a negative determination 2 under the Greenfield ordinance, Greenfield Wetlands ordinance.
Second.
Okay, seconded by Erica. Any further discussion on that one? Okay, seeing heads shaking no, I will assume no. So I'll put that one to a vote. All opposed to a negative determination type 2 for the Greenfield Wetlands Ordinance? Anyone abstaining? Okay, that one also passes unanimously. So we will, thanks for coming to the meeting, and we'll get you that paperwork sometime soon.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Good night.
Okay, so let me find my agenda here. Next on our agenda is a public meeting, request for certificate of compliance, Green River utility line structures relocation off Heath Camp Road, map R32, lot 2B, DEP file number 168-0344. And is there someone here for that project?
Yeah, hi, this is Tracy Sudhalter. I work for TRC and have been helping National Grid with the project for, oh gosh, the last 5 years or so. So thanks for having me back tonight, everybody. Hold on, I'm just getting my video pulled up. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hey.
Do you have a document you want to share, or would you like me to?
If you have it pulled up, if you want to share it, you can go ahead. I had passed along a couple of items to Eric. I guess back in December. We wrapped up project work in early December. The site has been as stabilized as it can be for winter time. And padding has been removed, and we went through, had the engineers, so that you'll see that those are photos that I have provided of the site. So for those of you who've been out to the project site before, this is the access road through the field. So that's just, leveled out, graded, covered in mulched and straw. That is after you come down out of the field, you've gone through the little backwater channel, and this is through the kind of upland area heading towards the structures. And those are our new structures, moved back away from the Green River on their new micropile foundations. The area has been graded, seeded, and stabilized. Again, as much as they can be for late November, early December. And so many moons ago, I believe it was in July or August, we had, oh God, that was last year. We had discussed, we've been having discussions about the plantings that we would do to kind of make up for the fact that some of the plantings had to be removed, or some of the growth had to be removed in order to accommodate structure removal. So you're looking at some of the new American hazelnuts and some of the arrowwood viburnums that were planted along the river. And same idea, some more Corylus americana and Viburnum dentatum to replace what had been removed. And so for those of you who may remember, there were structures that were sort of semi embedded still within the bank of the Green River. So you can see this is after removal of the few that were still embedded. The other ones had already, were completely eroded behind them and were no longer embedded. So this is just looking at the bank.
Looks like the last photo.
And that's it. Yeah, so the turbidity curtains that we had put in place as we were pulling structures has been removed. Everything's out of the water. That's what the site looks like now. And so these are the engineering plans, the finalized engineering plans. The setbacks are all on the plan. The engineers also provided distances or something that you guys had requested. They're in a table on there. There you go. Thank you. Distances between structures and resources. So that should give you guys the information that you had requested in order to obtain a certificate of compliance. And then there should also be a letter accompanying the package that sort of was from the engineers stating this is what happened on the project. Here's how it is in compliance with what our initial project plans were that were submitted, which was also requested as an item that would be needed for the certificate of compliance. Yep. What's the other item? You guys should also have one other thing, the Form 8. Yep, Form 8A, excuse me.
I can't remember, Tracy, did we have any post-shrub installation reporting requirements, like a 2-year thing, or is this? Sorry, I can't remember.
I don't believe it's sort of just and Eric and I had been discussing this as well. Obviously, where we wrapped up work in late fall, it's hard to get, vegetation stabilized really realistically and see good growth. So we do know that it was not written explicitly in the order of conditions, I don't believe. that we needed to have like 2 years of monitoring, but the order of conditions, the way it's written, does sort of leave some room for interpretation of being like, hey, you guys still need to go out there and keep an eye on this. So Eric and I had sort of discussed it. The team and I will be continuing to work on that site. There's another project, or in the area, there is another project that appears like it's going to be coming up for the same area. So we will be out on site in the spring, and we will be continuing to monitor the way the vegetation is. But there's nothing saying like you need to go out once a month and take photos, report back to the Conservation Commission.
So there's no requirement from our orders on the survivorship of the plantings or anything like that? Okay.
Does anybody have a copy of that? I'm in the folder, but I was looking for.
If you can't find it, Rachel, I definitely can find it pretty quickly for you.
Okay, that would be great.
Let me, can I request control?
Yeah, you
Is that
should be
even
able
something I
to.
can do?
Yeah.
Share.
Yep. I found a copy, but it said it was a draft, so I'm not sure it's the final.
Can you see my screen?
No.
No, you can't. Oh, darn. Okay, hold on. I don't want to. How about now?
It's coming up. Yep, now we can see it.
Okay, great. Let me scroll down to the post instruction. Oh, sorry, my computer's taking a minute. Already checked them. We're getting there. Oh, okay. Here we go. 68. Don't redirect flow of water. Sediment collected within 30. Okay. Maintenance of these areas shall be in a manner that assures permanent stabilization. It precludes any soil erosion. This condition is ongoing, does not expire upon completion of this project or the issuance of a certificate of compliance. So there is that. That was sort of what I was saying, that this it sort of alludes to. You still need to go out there and make sure things are behaving themselves. That's order of condition 70, saying that it's ongoing. And then just upon completion of the project, you have to submit the certificate of compliance form, a letter from the registered professional engineer, as-built plans stamped by the professional engineer with buffer zone, distances, limit of work, and any resource areas. If anybody wants to stop, please just yell and I'll pause my scrolling. And then non-native plants. And that's it for post-construction requirements.
This is a question for the commissioners. Do we have to wait for vegetation to become, for the site to be stabilized and for vegetation to be growing to issue the COC?
My recollection is that that's what we've done in the past. So we've held COCs until vegetated areas have become fully, like interpreting fully stabilized as that seed mix sprouts and there are roots and live vegetation in that area. So that's my understanding of fully stabilized. I think especially given the season, like I wouldn't, it looks from the pictures like you've done everything right in terms of the construction, but I wouldn't consider an area stabilized until that seed mix actually sprouted and was visibly present and living.
Yeah, so we just, because this, the order of conditions does state that upon 30 days upon the completion of construction that you have to submit the certificate of compliance. That's why we submitted it now.
Where does it state
So,
that? It says within 30 days of all disturbed areas.
within 30 days of final grading, all areas, maintenance, responsibility of the owner and responsibility of the applicant does not expire upon the completion of construction. Okay, upon completion of construction and final soil stabilization. So maybe you're reading that final soil stabilization as, yeah, and shall submit the following to the Conservation Commission. So
I don't think there's any, I don't believe that there's any time other than the expiration of the permit that would mandate when you needed to submit for a COC. So you have until the expiration of the permit to request a COC. The 30 days is for needing
that's the
to
other
have
thing, yeah.
the area stabilized. Yeah. Which it sounds like that was done.
Yes, it was. Yeah, so I mean, I totally agree with you. I think vegetation needs to be stabilized, which obviously, given the season, won't be until May. So obviously, you guys have the information in hand. Things won't be changing out there. So, if you guys want to wait and then I go back out and take more photos in the spring, that's also totally okay. But we wanted to get you the information as soon as possible to let you know that the site was stabilized. So.
Yeah, that was the same thing that stood out to me is definitely would like to see things, you know, rooted in a growing season, even though everything looks as described. Hopefully the seed mix beats out the knotweed that's going to pop up at the same time.
I was gonna say I wouldn't worry about vegetation coming back. The knotweed will be in force, I'm sure, early spring next year. So, but
not a great stabilizer, unfortunately, but.
So why don't we? How about I plan to come back with some photos? That hopefully, maybe 3 or 4 months.
Thank you for the update.
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely, and thank you all for having me this evening.
Before you go, does anyone know? I mean, technically, it seems they submitted, you know, the form, for the certificate of compliance. Does that mean we need to like continue this, or do they need to withdraw? Rachel, you're shaking your head.
Hearing or public meeting.
We would have to continue it.
Is it a public hearing?
Let me check. Public meeting.
Am I still sharing my screen? I'm gonna stop sharing now. That's okay.
On our agenda, it says it's a public meeting.
Mark clarified with us that a public hearing needs to be continued and a public meeting doesn't. But that's my memory, so maybe worth double checking me on that.
So would the alternative just be an updated request for a COC, or?
I think the question is whether we can just say, bye Tracy, see you after everything is sprouted, or whether Tracy needs to request a continuation for us right now in order to be able to postpone the issuance of the COC until a couple months. That was your question, correct, Travis?
Yes.
So there is in the and again, this is obviously up to your interpretation, but there is under 70, it does say this condition is ongoing and does not expire upon the completion of this project or the issuance of a certificate of compliance for stabilization of the site. So the way it's written, just how I interpreted it, does say you can issue the certificate of compliance, but that the project is still responsible for making sure that the site is stabilized and in good condition. Again,
Yeah.
totally up to you guys.
I think just before we sort of signed off on meeting the requirements, we'd want to like kind of see that as a requirement, as the rooting of the vegetation, even though your point is taken that it's ongoing.
I think it's an extra degree of insurance given that if there is a major storm this winter and there is any damage to that site that resulted in erosion, then, under a permit, then you would be monitoring that and would need to report to us about it and what you would do to repair it, and it would fall under the completion of an open permit, versus if we issued a COC without the site fully established, then it would be an enforcement order that we would need to submit. So I think in terms of paperwork, it's probably a lot more straightforward to just wait until the site is actually stabilized. I think it's a less I think it would make any issues that arose on the site between now and the next growing season a little easier to deal with.
I think that's a very good point. And given how unique the Green River is in that area, I think that's a very good point.
Just to clarify, the erosion controls are still in place, correct?
So that's actually an interesting thing. I had discussed this with Eric as well. The contractors removed the erosion control prior to me going out there, just to give the site a final walkthrough. And I had discussed with Eric, I said, everything's been graded, everything's seeded in mulch. Do you want us to go back out there and put up the erosion controls again? And he said no. So
I think that there is supposed to be an inspection from the commission before any erosion control. So I think it's our responsibility to determine whether the site qualifies as before the erosion controls are removed.
I agreed with you. That's the way the order of conditions were written. So I had sent emails to Eric specifically stating that, and he said that on behalf of the Conservation Commission, he was making the decision that was not going to happen, that we were not required to go back out and do erosion controls.
It seems like not even just for compliant or for the good of what we're looking for, but even for National Grid or whatever, you maybe want to leave those in.
Yeah, I would disagree with that. Respectfully disagree with Eric on that handle. I don't think we've ever approved the removal of erosion controls before vegetation has been established. I don't think there's precedent for that in terms of the commission's response or review of projects.
In the order of conditions, it does say that they can be removed upon approval by the commission or its agent. And I don't Eric has been signing things as acting agent, so I'm not sure if that is technically the same thing as an agent. But yeah, it was supposed to be inspected first and then removed, definitely.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with the way it's written. But I did, when I noticed that the erosion controls had been removed, I emailed and had a conversation on the phone with Eric, describing the situation, what had been done, saying, hey, do you want me to go have them go back out there and put the erosion controls back up? And he said, no, as the acting agent for the Conservation Commission for Greenfield, I would not require you to do that. And I do have emails, and I do have from him.
mean, I'm sure Tracy, you're as nervous as I am about the that edge there in the wet season, and the some of the
Not even the wet season,
Right,
just
yeah.
the winter in general.
Yeah.
You are all aware of what that river does in that area and what it has done over the last 10 years. So, yeah, that was a conversation that I had with Eric back in end of November. So,
What would happen if there were hypothetically discharges into jurisdictional resource areas from an unstable site?
I don't think you're going to have discharges.
Okay.
So that's my big thing. One, you're in an upland. The whole project area is in an upland. Yes, it is adjacent to the river, and yes, the bank is unstable, but it's not. The bank is not unstable because of the project. The bank is unstable because that's the nature of that bank. So the area where work is done is not unstable.
Can you remind us, Tracy, what the erosion controls were prior to being removed?
Yeah, sure. So there were along the river, along the Green River, we had erosion control fencing tacked in with stakes, spikes, whatever you want to call it. We also had straw wattles in place along the whole edge of the project area. And then there is a small, the backwater channel when you're coming down off the hill. We had straw wattles leading up to and then away from that kind of backwater channel. And there was a small bordering vegetated wetland that we crossed over. Again, there were straw wattles along the, and so the whole site was matted. And we had straw wattles along the edges of the mats, as well as on the ground as much as we could through that section as well. So there was pretty extensive erosion control in place throughout the project. And when they pulled the matting up, where a lot of the straw wattles had been at the edge of the mat, they pulled all of those up. So, yes.
Was there anything? Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, was there anything? In the last picture there, you can see the exposed soil on the edge, on the bank. Was there anything sort of like keeping that?
There is vegetation, or not vegetation. There's roots within that.
Oh, sure.
But again,
I just didn't know if there was any construction sort of like a shroud or something just to kind of hold it back. I'm not thinking of the right word, but
yeah, there had been a turbidity curtain in place along the edge of the river in the river while structures were being removed, but that was sort of what was it for in river erosion controls. So, and then so part of the removal process was to have the anchor planks and guy wires that were supporting the old structures were removed. And obviously around all of that is sort of where the erosion control fence had been placed during construction. So.
Just to let everybody know, going back to the certificate of compliance process, in the Wetlands Protection Act, it says that the applicant will request in writing the issuance of a certificate of compliance. Upon written request by the applicant, a certificate of compliance shall be issued by the issuing authority within 21 days of receipt. And then it says, if the issuing authority determines after review that the work has not been done in compliance, it may refuse to issue a certificate of compliance. Such refusal shall be issued within 21 days of receipt and shall be in writing and specify the reasons. So it sounds like we would either have to issue it within 21 days, refuse it within 21 days, or maybe the applicant could withdraw the request. I feel like those might be the three options. And there's nothing about continuing. It talks about continuing public hearings for notices of intent, but not for a request for a certificate of compliance. This is in 10.059.
Thank you for pulling that up, Travis. This just came up with me earlier today, and I haven't looked that up yet.
Well, I don't know what happens if you refuse an order of conditions. Does that just mean that the applicant needs to resubmit for an order of conditions? Like if we say, no, we can't give you an order of conditions, the site isn't fully stabilized yet, then
Travis, didn't you mention it could be with?
back again later, it says, now the site is fully stabilized. We're resubmitting, and you give us all the same information with updated photos. Like, is that just like a paperwork clerical thing? That are there other repercussions for refusing an order of a certificate of compliance?
Oh, I'm sorry, Travis. Did you say it could be withdrawn though? I didn't see it in the text there, but
I'm not seeing that either, but
seems like it's.
Sorry, I'm just keeping you guys all on your toes this evening.
yeah.
Sorry about that.
We've had a month since our last meeting, so we forgot how the Wetlands Protection Act works.
That's
Just
okay.
kidding.
I just had my conservation commission meeting for my town, and we had some crazy stuff going on too. So,
Mhm.
but just playing with Vermont regulations now instead. So,
Yeah,
always fun.
it doesn't say anything about that they can't request it again. We would just have to say we are denying it for these reasons. I think they would still need to obtain a certificate of compliance. So I think that assumes that they would have to apply again.
Yeah,
Once
just come back in the spring. I
yeah,
think
once
that's
the reasons
sort of what
that
we're all agreeing makes the most sense.
Yeah, we're just trying to figure out the technical way to make it happen.
We
Yeah.
don't have to worry about like continuing or not continuing or any of that then. I mean, if we just say, no, we can't issue a certificate of compliance at the moment because the site is not fully stabilized.
Yeah, and we would have to submit that in writing with the explanation within 21 days. But yeah. That's my understanding.
Seems like that might be the path forward then. Just a denial and a resubmission.
It sounds that way to me. Unless anyone else knows anything I don't know.
Ah, sorry, if you can all hear these.
That works for me. And you guys have 21 days to figure out if anything else crazy came up.
Sure, I'll motion then to deny the issuance of a certificate of compliance until the site is fully stabilized in the next growing season. I think that's clear enough what we're waiting for.
Yeah, that certainly makes sense to me. I was like handing this in, I was like, this seems really silly, but here we go. So anyways, I fully understand the decision and we'll look forward to getting in touch with you guys when it gets a little warmer. It's negative
Well,
12 degrees
we-
at my house this evening, so I'll
Yeah.
look forward to that.
Well, we haven't voted on it yet. So is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Second.
Okay. Seconded. Any further discussion on that?
I just wanted to add, so it sounds like the shrubs were installed after the growing season. So is there any I mean, do we have any, I don't know, just want to put it on record that maybe we want to check the survivorship of those shrubs if they were installed in December.
They were installed in November, but it was the end of November and it was no longer the growing season. So
Did we have a layout for the particular locations?
yes, you did. There is
Okay.
a planting plan. Yeah.
Great. That's what I was trying to say. Thank you.
I think we can consider that part of the vegetation that's stabilizing the site. And so, yeah, maybe we can recommend that the resubmittal happens after the date that the shrubs are leafed out, so that they can be included in the stabilization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think because we didn't have a condition saying that a certain percent had to survive, I think I don't think there's really, I don't think we could deny it if they did, if half of them died. We didn't have a condition saying that they had to survive.
Well, unless you made the argument that there's not enough like woody vegetation to fully stabilize that area, in which case
True.
they would be considered not fully stable.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Maybe in the future we could put a threshold in like a 75% or something in our, I don't know if that's a boilerplate condition or if that was a special condition, but probably a special condition. But
Yeah. Okay, any other discussion on that? Okay, so we can vote on that motion. All opposed to denying the order of, not order of conditions, certificate of compliance? Anyone abstaining? Okay, that passes unanimously that we will deny the certificate of compliance on the basis that the site is not fully stabilized. And within 21 days, we should be sending a letter in writing stating that.
Who does the letter go to? Me?
I guess it would go to the applicant on the
On
request
file.
for
Yeah.
the.
So
Yeah.
is it on? I just want to make sure. So Mike Tyrell, you had all met Don Travellini, for those of you who had done site walks and things like that. Don retired from National Grid after many decades with the company back in the fall. So I just want to make sure that what? I just want to make sure that you have the right person on file now. For
the Form 8A request for certificate of compliance that I'm looking at has the request being made by you and an address in Manchester, New Hampshire to send it to.
Okay. Perfect. Works great. Thanks, guys.
So we can just make
wanted to
sure.
you weren't going to send it to somebody who was retired.
that that's the, we should just make a note that that's the name and address that's used. Oh, good. I think
Perfect.
I'll deserve to retire.
Yeah. She well, did you guys officially vote? We good?
Yep, we're good.
Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you in the spring.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Tracy.
Okay, so let me make sure I was on a different screen. I want to make sure I wasn't muted. So that is our last public meeting for this meeting. Next on the agenda is enforcement updates and other business. I do not have any enforcement updates from Eric or any that I know of. I assume no one else on the commission has any updates.
The only update that I have is that I don't know if you got, I mean, conservation agent position update is listed under that. I know that Amanda Smith, who was offered the position, declined. That's I don't have any, I got that information from Amanda, not from Eric. So I don't know if there's been any other offers or anything, but I know that she did not accept the position. So
yes, I did get, so I didn't have any project or site visit updates, but I do have an update on the agent position, which is that Amanda Smith did not accept the offer. So an offer was made to Mitchell Vi, who has accepted and will be starting next week. So yes, we will have an agent starting next week.
Mitchell Vi.
Yes, VYE.
Cool.
So the other update, oh, I lost the the other update is trail maintenance at Griswold GTD Conservation Area. And we have Lincoln Fish here, who I asked to join the meeting to discuss some ideas that he has for updates and, see what we can do. Welcome to the meeting, Lincoln. You are muted currently. I think, okay.
There.
Okay.
How's that?
There you go. Yep.
Good.
You're good.
Okay. Thanks. Could you bring me up to speed? I know it's something you've been talking about for a while, and I see kind of two levels of it. One is just the basic physical trail maintenance when trees fall down and across the path and brush grows into it. The trees need to be cleared out and the brush needs to be mowed. Is that something that is still under consideration, or have you dealt with that?
We have not dealt with that. So basically what we've talked about is, what you're saying, cutting trees that are over the trail. We talked about adding more blazes and possibly signage along the trail. Doing something about some wet areas / stream crossings, like maybe some small bridges or things like that. And then I believe Fletcher made a request about updating the map that you see in the parking lot. And I think you had discussed maybe you wanted to update some of the educational things related to the map and things like that too.
Yes. Yeah, that would be like a whole nother level of it.
Yeah. So I think what we had talked about already was that we would probably be hiring a company to do like the physical trail maintenance, like cutting trees and any grading or anything like that needs to be done.
Yes.
And then it sounds like maybe with you, we could update some of the educational materials and signage, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that part of the trail maintenance, however, is deciding should we keep open and active all the trails that are there now, or are there some that don't really make sense to continue with, some that aren't used very much or don't really go anywhere productive, or some sections of trail that are really wet, perhaps could be either rerouted or some structures put in there, flat stones or little bog bridge kind of things to get people across them without getting muddy sneakers. So I think maybe it would be a good idea to have a meeting on site before the landscape company or whoever gets hired to do the work, so that you can direct them, to the place that really needs the work and ignore the areas that don't. And that's what always used to happen. Bill Griswold would call up, oh gosh, I've forgotten their name now, but they were a local excavator. And in the winter, when they weren't doing excavating, they would just bring the tractor out and putt through the trails and brush hog them, and bring a chainsaw along and cut any trees that had fallen across the trail. So I think what's really needed is just to do that annually, or at least every other year, just sort of an updated version of that. Maybe a nicer four-wheel drive tractor, but something like that. So I think a meeting to look at should, what is the trail network that we should officially adopt there, and what of course there'll be annual maintenance, and then I think you could probably apply to DCR, or there's probably a grant giving authority out there with the state that would give you some funds to do some upgrading to the trail itself, where there are wet areas or erodible areas that, and maybe that landscape company could actually do the work, but that would be a larger investment on your part, and it might be a good idea to look into what the DCR trails people have, because I know they give out grants for trail work on public trails that are either municipally owned or land trust owned, that sort of thing. And even on permanent, like conservation restriction, private lands that agree to maintain it open to the public. I know of some grants that DCR has given for trail construction and maintenance. So I would bet that you folks would qualify for that.
I think, assuming it's still called the same thing, I think the Recreational Trails Grant covers
Yes.
what you're talking about.
Okay, well, good. Sounds like you're familiar with it.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I guess as far as Lincoln, did you see the report that Travis put together of our visit that showed like locations of downed trees and that kind of thing?
Oh,
sent
I
this
didn't
map.
see any specific. Oh, there we go.
I should
Okay.
say map, no report. Sorry. Yep.
I hadn't seen that. Thank you.
Yeah, I only bring it up because I like your idea of the site visit, but I'm just wondering sort of how much information we have already, and maybe we can make it a targeted visit in the sense that, like, I know down by the pasture, there's maybe some trails that aren't utilized that we could close. We have some wet areas marked here, so I just wonder if between us we could have a targeted visit, kind of go right to those spots.
Yes, I think that's a good idea.
Great.
Yeah, because it takes a while to walk that whole loop.
It does, yeah. And then my other question was, as far as materials go, do you or have or know of someone that would have like maybe existing like digital files for any of the materials, say the map or some of the interpretive signage stuff that's there?
Like this
Oh,
map?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I certainly have that, but it's, let's see, I probably have something that I did years ago on ArcGIS that would have that map superimposed on a topographic map. It's probably pretty primitive compared to today's GIS stuff, but you know, it would be a start.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. I think I don't know off the top of my head if we even have a shape file for like the trail itself. So maybe you have that, and we could sort of. Well, I guess we walked it, but we sort of zigzagged. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about. I guess we don't necessarily need the, ArcGIS file per se, but if you had shape files, that would be useful to us. That we might not have, that could be useful.
I think the boundary corners I probably have as a shape file.
Okay.
And I can certainly, well, I'll just look in my old files and see what I've got and see if I can get them to you.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there was was it on the main map on the kiosk where the descriptions of the interpretive signage were, or was there another I can't remember. Oh, it's right here. Okay. Yep. Got it. Never mind on that then.
Yeah, so is this a PDF? I mean, I have
Yeah,
all that.
this is a PDF on the greenfieldrecreation.com.
Okay.
This is where I found it.
I mean, if it would be helpful, I have all that stuff as a Word document, so it could be edited more easily. But I'm kind of thinking that it is pretty out of date, and it would be nice to update both the information and also the display, because this was a nice idea once upon a time, and when we first took it out and displayed it, it looked great. But as it turns out, nobody ever stops and picks up a brochure anymore. They just sit there and, once in a while you'll open that little door there and a mouse will run out that has been living in there and chewing up what few brochures are left. And so I think realistically we need to either just put it to bed and not try to maintain the trail, or update it and make it more relevant. And I think a couple of the ideas I had, I think whatever we decide, at least in the past, the Massachusetts Forest Stewardship Program has been really open to funding whatever harebrained schemes I come up with. And this has been true for years and years. They like to fund these things. And that's how we put the trail in to begin with. And the interpretive signs and some of the practices that we did out there. So I'm thinking that one of the things that would be pretty exciting to do would be to replace those numbered kiosks. There's 16 of them through the woods. And if we could replace them with QR codes where you could take your phone and wave it over the QR code and it would take you to a display of something that was relevant to the woods, that patch of woods that you're looking at right there. And I don't think that we should use necessarily the same information that's on the 16 numbered stops now. I think some of that is out of date, and we could do some much more interesting stuff. I think there are some things that are really relevant, like invasive plants and using native plants to replace invasives and that sort of thing. And that beautiful white oak grove is just sort of timeless, and we really ought to highlight that. But some of the areas, I think, I've never seen a snake at my snake habitat stop, so I think I might give up on that. But what everybody wants to talk about in the woods these days is carbon sequestration and climate. And what should we do with our trees? How do we best manage this gift of the New England forest that we've been given to try to meet our needs and sequester as much carbon as we can, and to try to have a reasonable dialogue about how woods should be managed, if at all. And I'm thinking that with that QR code format, we might be able to get some celebrity climate folks from around New England, various college professors or state folks who think and talk about this stuff all the time, to do a little 30-second blurb for us on, and that would show up on the QR code, which you could access through your phone. And I think that I could convince Mike Downey at the stewardship program to fund all that, maybe a little bit at a time. I mean, it would probably be a really big project to do all in 1 year. And they're always a fiscal year kind of thing. You don't find out for 3 or 4 months that you got the grant, and then you only have 8 months left to do all the work, and it all has to be done by June 30th, or it goes away. And so I think biting it off in little sections would probably be better than trying to do it all at once. But if that were of interest, I would be really interested in working on something like that to update it and make it more relevant. But that's sort of a separate thing from trail maintenance. I mean, you can't have one without the other, but sort of separate things. I think the trail maintenance, the annual maintenance, that probably has to come out of your budget. Yeah,
that sounds great.
Yeah, Lincoln, I think the other thought that I had was, ArcGIS has done these, set up a platform for the story maps where you can create an online story map, and it might be possible to link the QR code to that, which would mean that you had the option of either walking through and clicking on the QR codes while you walk through, or you could hike and just enjoy the scenery. And then when you go home, you could access a story map where you could kind of revisit your walk along the map route that would provide that kind of information and videos along with it, which, not everybody wants to stop. I mean, we stopped at every one, and I thought it was really interesting. But I probably wouldn't have stopped at every one if I had just been myself or with friends.
That's an interesting point. Yeah.
So
once you get that momentum, sometimes it's hard to give it up. So
yeah.
This is a story map would be a collection of the stuff that's that would be on the QR codes.
Yeah, I think you could combine it. So the story maps are, they're connected to a map, to a GIS map, and you kind of click through and it walks you through the landscape. And at each point, in the landscape where you stop, there's kind of a sidebar that, there's a photograph of that view from that site, and then a sidebar that would pop up the same information from the QR code. So a link to a video or a paragraph description very similar to what you've written, that's on the backside of the pamphlet.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and I think people could follow along the story map even as they walk too, if they, because Lincoln, just to put it in a way, picture a interface on your phone or a page on your phone where there's two columns, and, or two halves, and one half is the map, and the other half is a pane of information that changes dynamically based on the point you click on the map.
Point you're okay.
Yeah. So like if you are walking, you could click as you're in that spot, and it pops up the thing about the white oak forest, for example, and some links, and that can be done on site or when you get home. But it's fairly it's a fairly straightforward interface, I think, pretty simple. So I think that could be a good fit too.
Yeah, that sounds great. And it's not hard to, we could get somebody to set that up. Mostly the work would be providing the information and telling the story.
Yep.
I'm wondering if there's a way to involve visitors somehow. The first thing I think of is, there's a number of different kinds of bird habitat out there, and it would be interesting to people who know birds to report what they see at, let's say, 6 different stations that would be typical of, one would be a deep woods habitat, one would be a brushy goldenrod kind of habitat, and to see, it's nice to point out the differences in habitat reflected in the bird species that you see. And it would be a way of involving people. And I think there's probably lots more creative things that we could come up with. But if there's some way of making it somewhat interactive, I suppose that means you need somebody to kind of mind the website or something and kick out trolls and stuff like that.
Yeah, and one thing I'm wondering is if if we are using like Esri's ArcGIS online, we would probably need to pay for hosting that. And I don't know if the city, I would assume the city has like ArcGIS licenses.
Yeah,
I don't know if.
I think with your license, you have X amount of credits, and I think certain features consume credits, but that a lot of times you can stay within the budget, so you don't necessarily have to pay extra for that. It's been a little while, but I think that's the general system. So it could be no extra cost or.
There might be other platforms that do very similar type things. I've seen a lot of the ArcGIS story maps, but if I don't know, my 30-second or 3-second sleuthing says that Michelle Vaya is a geographic information system specialist. So
good.
If our new agent works out and we also get the town to bump hours up to full time in the next fiscal year, which I really hope will happen, and I think we need to pay on trying to make that happen, then we might have somebody on our team that is very qualified to help with a project like this.
Yeah, it sounds like that's what it would need, somebody to sort of police it and work out the bugs and make sure that things are up to speed, because both physically and with the information flow, I think it's easy for things to get neglected up there because there's really nobody in charge. And
Mhm.
that since Bill Griswold passed, I mean, there really hasn't been anybody looking over the place. And it would be nice to get a neighbor or somebody like that who, had everybody's best interest at heart, like Bill did. And but also, if somebody
for
had
you.
GIS skills, that'd be wonderful.
Lincoln, I had a question. Did I think I found the spot that you showed us after the work with Audubon. We did a walk with a representative of Audubon looking at the different bird habitat that have been created in that last
Yeah.
So I was on that walk and I think I found the spot where you had planted some Chinese American chestnut hybrids.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's one tree that I found that is like maybe 6 or 7 feet tall right now.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to check and see if because that would be a wonderful thing to highlight. That project is just the reinvestment in bringing American chestnut
Yes.
eggs back into the wildlife, and but it's a really difficult area to walk through. So I don't know if there's more chestnut than
all the blackberry bushes. Yeah.
Yeah. I found
yeah,
that. It was, there's prickers everywhere. Yeah.
one of the chestnuts died and one is surviving and doing fabulously. That was as of last summer, last time I was there.
Nice, 50% survival rate. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, if we could clear out the area, maybe they would come back and give us a couple more, And
Yeah, I bet. I mean, I know the folks that came out and did the planting are no longer with American Chestnut Society, but I do know the current president, and he works at Smith College, and so I can work on him and see if we can get some more resistant seedlings.
Okay.
That'd be great to see that. I mean, you need a few more at least.
I just wanted to.
Was this
oh,
your
nice,
photo,
there it is.
Rachel?
Yep, I believe that's.
Oh yeah.
Just for future reference, I just wanted to mention that I think Esri calls the story maps with user contribution, they call it crowdsourced story maps, I think, or crowdsourcing.
Oh, okay, that makes
just
sense.
so if we're Googling later, we can call it that. Yep.
Yeah. Well, let's see. I don't know. I don't want to presume anything about the trail maintenance and what you're going to do to hire somebody, but perhaps we could plan a targeted meeting where we look at points where we need to make decisions about whether to reroute the trail or not, whether to do some permanent improvements to try to upgrade the treadway of the trail, and then have something that we could show to a contractor and get a price for doing that work. And maybe we could look at 1st of April or something like that to do that.
Yeah. Are you are you saying 1st of April for the site visit?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Would commissioners be available? I mean, obviously we might not know our exact calendars at this
that
point.
Week.
Yeah.
During the first week in April. And it could be a Saturday as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to say this, I think I will bring my colleague Toby Carter along because he's working out really well. He's worked with us for 3 or 4 years now. And in 3 months, I will be 70. So one of these days, I'm not going to do this anymore. And so I need to pass this on. But I want to involve him gradually in these harebrained things that I do.
First of all, not harebrained at all. These are excellent ideas, and the information at the kiosks is very creative. Even the outdated ones, like the drumming log and stuff. It's very, very entertaining. We had a great time going through it all.
Well, that's great. That's the first positive feedback I've gotten.
Oh, that's
surprising.
so much fun.
Oh.
I think there was a request a few years ago for more pamphlets too. Somebody from the town reached out and
Okay.
Cassie, remember we were calling Cassie having to go and refill the box.
Oh, nice. Okay, good.
Of somebody. So there are people who look for it.
Great. Well, things are better than I thought then.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good idea. I know we had some questions too that we can figure out just in terms of understanding the process and cost, because believe that there is a threshold. So if the work that we want to do goes above a certain threshold, then we need to it needs to be put out as an RFP, or you need to get at least
yes.
the town in order to have the work done. You can't just call the neighbor back up and and so we need to figure that out on our end, and hopefully our new agent will help us sort that out.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think
And the state, the stewardship program, municipal grants program, you apply to them generally in the late summer, and they do the approval in the fall. So at some point soon after April, I think maybe we could come up with a rough draft of a first application. What do we want to do first with this stewardship trail upgrade? And something that we could realistically accomplish during the next fiscal year. So that we would have that application in, I don't know, August or September, I guess is, I'll have to check. I'll find out when the hard due date is for those applications. So we would be able to talk about that in more detail at our 1st of April meeting at the property.
hey, yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Do people want to tentatively put a date on the calendar now? I mean, the first Saturday of April is April 2nd. No holiday or anything. I don't know.
I don't see mine.
Might as well tentative, you know.
Yeah, and then if we need to adjust it, we can do that later. Are people early birds? What time we want to meet there?
Early works for me, but I'll do
Is
Anytime
9:30 decent, or do you guys want to do 10? I think did we do 10 before last time?
I think we did.
That was daylight savings, though.
Yeah.
That was the weekend of daylight savings.
Lincoln, do you have any time constraints?
No, that would be fine.
Okay.
Either 9:30 or 10 would be fine. with me.
I only require 5 a.m. meetings during the week.
All right. I'll pencil in we'll pencil in 9:30, I guess.
Okay,
And
April 2nd.
April 2nd, yeah.
I'll also just add that a coworker of mine has more than a couple bat boxes that are homemade from one of her clients, I guess. If there's any opportunity to install a bat box, if we have a contractor who's able to get the height up on the tree that we need, we could use it at Griswold.
That sounds great. Yeah, I think since both education and wildlife habitat are our goals, I think maybe one of the stops could be different nest boxes you could put up, and for different reasons. You know, you could have a screech owl or bat box or any number of woodland birds of different sizes and oriented in different directions. So that might be a fun thing to do.
There's one
Yeah.
there. There's
Yes.
that one
Yeah,
that we found like in the pine, that massive pine tree.
Yeah. Yeah, that
And there used to be one up by the field there, isn't there?
there's a
Hmm.
couple in that southern
Yeah.
field right in back of
Yeah.
the Griswold's field.
I think there
Yeah.
was only one still intact over on the field edge. The
Mm.
rest were pretty deteriorated. But there was the nest box that was in the tree. You're right, Erica. That one would still look pretty good.
Oh, that's right. And there was a kestrel box in that same meadow. And the one, there was a screech owl box that one year got inhabited by a stray swarm of bees. They were there in the middle of the winter. And yeah, never saw an owl though.
I want information like that though in our kiosk. That's our information.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's so
Well,
neat.
I could give you a picture of the bees because I climbed up there to see what the heck was moving, and there was a bunch of bees.
Oh.
Okay, well, this sounds great.
Yeah.
I'm really glad to reconnect with you all and have an opportunity for this kind of continuity of management, because it's really what makes this job worthwhile, is to see the way things develop and change over time and have a chance to revisit.
Yeah, and hopefully we will continue to actively manage in the future. You know, when you were saying that it's kind of fallen away and no one's been managing it, it's like, well, that's us not fulfilling our duties to manage it.
Well, yeah, I think we need to figure out a mechanism of how to do it, and you know, who's in charge, who gets paid to do what, and all that stuff is important.
Mm-hmm.
Getting a conservation agent who isn't, you know, with a little bit of extracurricular time would be a huge step, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they didn't leave every 6 months, which is good.
Yeah, well, all towns have that trouble. Conservation agents are a temporary thing, usually.
Yeah. It's just we started getting some continuity with Cassie, and then she left, and you know she was working on this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well, just so everyone knows, in like 30 years, my retirement plan to ease into retirement is to be a part-time conservation agent.
Oh, good.
So
that'll be the golden age.
Yeah. That's my plan.
It's gonna be a lucky conservation.
All right. Well, we're almost at 9 p.m. now, so thanks for attending this meeting, and I think we're all looking forward to moving forward with getting some stuff done out there. And I guess we'll see you
Okay.
in April.
See you in April, if not before.
Yeah,
Great.
sounds good.
Okay,
Yeah. well,
thank
great.
you.
Thank you,
All
Lincoln.
right.
You're welcome.
Okay, so the only, on our agenda, we have project monitoring and site visit scheduling. I don't have any updates for any of those properties except for Green River Utility Line, which we already discussed tonight. So guessing no one else has any updates on those. All right. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll just remind the commission that I'm away at our next meeting. I will not be in attendance.
Okay. Good to know.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. We have a motion to adjourn that's been seconded. Any further discussion? No further discussion. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Okay, it's unanimous. We are adjourned at 8:48 p.m. It just changed over.